My name is Luz Elena Mendoza Ramos. I was born in San Francisco, California. I was raised in Southern Oregon. And I moved to Portland when I was 24, 25, around 2007. Oh my gosh, how did I not get into music? You know, I grew up listening to what my parents were listening to, and then I also come from a very specific, cultural background, and part of that, I mean, it's amazing to have grown in with such diversity, and how I feel, the language, the food, the arts, music, etc. And part of that was listening to, old folk music from rural parts of Mexico, like corridos, rancheras, música tradicional de Huasteca, música Huasteca, el son de Tierra Caliente. All of that was like what informed me. I don't necessarily play that music. That music being, the echoes of my ancestry, and just tells a lot bigger of a picture than what you have right now. And because as a child, I've also learned, and it's a visceral thing. I mean, I don't know how you teach that, but I've learned how to emote in that way. Kind of like, you're tired, you say you're tired, or if you're tired, you go to sleep. The action that comes in life, you have to go pee, you go to the bathroom, Playing music is just kind of like, I've seen, especially mariachi singers growing up, really emoting something in a very authentic way, like saying it the way it is, and not beating around the bush, it's just a normal, and I think being Mexican American and just having like that little mix in there, just a natural, it just kind of, when I write in English, it just, it just translates that energy into, English. So I got into music because, it was the most natural, visceral thing, and my culture definitely was a home for it, that really held it in a very natural way in my context with my upbringing. So no, but they sang. I mean, again, it's like a huge part of, it's like, how can you not sing? I think we're all just used to singing and emoting in that way, because I'm just like a repetition of what my ancestors are. Example, even my parents and my grandparents. So meaning that, and to highlight specifically, it's like we are a family and a community that emotes and expresses. So even though my parents don't play a musical instrument, though my dad is super knowledgeable about what each mariachi player plays and like where it's originated from and where it came from and what was, like that's a whole other conversation. But knowing like what region this part of music is from versus this versus, huapangos, he just, so yeah, music is it's like a huge influence on our family. Sometimes when I write a song, it's, yes, like I'm like, oh, I want this one to be Spanish or English, but for the most part, is how my brain works. So I'm like raised by Mexican, immigrants, and then I'm just, it's just, I'm thinking in Spanish, I'm like feeling in Spanish, I'm like angry in Spanish, I'm emoting, I'm walking around, I'm navigating life in this other emotional body, another intelligence of just being and being able to have access to express myself in a different way. Though it's a colonized language, another one, I still have a different way. I still have, my identity is, still, adorned and like, it's like my companion, with my identity, so, or I write in English. So really it's just the duality of my everyday reality, existence. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people are like, so when do you decide? I mean, it's not that if part of my culture wasn't, if Spanish wasn't part of it, and it was just English, I would answer in a different way. But because I'm like, was raised that way, people who are not first generation bilingual speakers like have a hard time wrapping their mind with like, whoa, what is this? what is this mystery? You know, how do you decide? It just happens, you know? So really it's like more of, you know, paying attention to how does that impact me? I think that's the right question. It's like, how does switching naturally from English to Spanish, not even just the language, but what that carries, what's behind, what's attached to like the reason why I speak Spanish, like culture, et cetera, you know, tradition, you know, behavior to linguistics to like everything. That's like, how does it impact me, you know, navigating spaces like so, you know, and like, and then also dodging the othering sometimes, even the most like innocent othering, you know, which is just people just wanting to know, you know. So it's just really shows you how I'm like, so I don't really decide, I don't like, yes, like there's been times where now I'm like, cool, I'm gonna do Spanish, but really it just happens. Either I'm writing Spanish and English. And I live in Mexico now, and which is amazing because on so many levels, it is complicated, a lot to unpack. There's a lot of responsibility there. Also taking that space that my parents, you know, have not. And, you know, being in close proximity with, you know, what's natural to me, and like also hearing the sounds of other music that it's like either in the Spanish language, if it's Latine, if it's like, you know, Mexican, if it's just from different parts of like what we call Latin America, the original traditional indigenous sounds, you know, of those territories, like all of that's informing me, all of it, you know, so yeah, you know. My release is the actual show release is here at the Wonder Ballroom on the 26th. And then the actual like release for like the rest of the world is the 28th. And it's so scary because I'm like, I wrote it during the shutdown, some of it, and because I'm always writing, and you know, felt very soft, like really reconnecting back to like my OG soft side, which is I'm basically a softie in general, but just exploring even like on the most, like on the creative side, like exploring different sounds, exploring my producing skills, you know, working with a good engineer who is right in Oxford and Coco in Mexico City. I like started it in Portland and I also finished it in Mexico, which is like, you know, like a poetic statement of like kind of how I, you know, navigated through that whole process. And then also I think that there's so much to say of like my desire of like, you know, finding myself and having to be in Mexico, having to land in Mexico and finish it. The process was really painful making that record, as I feel like each record has had its own grief, you know, and a lot of it, again, I'm just learning as who I am as a person. Either if you hear it in like the production value or the production styling, like to like anything, it's like I'm really learning like who to work with, who's compatible with my energy, especially in like a male dominant, you know, industry. And like, though that's definitely being challenged, and it's so amazing because now I get to benefit from those conversations and that change. But in the past, like there's just been a lot of things have been unchecked and things continue to be unchecked. And I'm still, because I'm 1982 baby, you know, there's a lot of things that I'm still finding my voice and really going through and healing through the imposter syndrome, right? And I'm still figuring that out, you know, for how long it's been that I didn't have that validation. So though I'm like this unhinged or learning to like have capacity, that I have like this boundaryless, unhinged, creative space, I'm just learning that I have that and learning to have access to it, even though I'm like 41 and like still, you know? And a lot of it has to do with like me tiptoeing around, figuring out what's safe, what's not safe, who I feel safe with, etc. You know, so in that sense, yeah, it's making a record for me has been very difficult and very painful, but also very rewarding. And I just hope that the rewarding part and me accepting like my accomplishments it takes more of a bigger space than like me, you know, still trying to survive and the silent struggle that most people don't have the time, respectfully so, or the patience to really dig deep to those nuances of what, you know, of what it takes for a person to write a record and gather people, and then also like my positionality, who I am, where I come from, you know, what I've lived through to get to this certain point, and like, you know, manage mental health, manage, you know, creative boundaries. Again, in a male-dominant industry has been a mind fuck. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So on April 26th at the Wonder Ballroom, I'm also sharing the bill with my friends, Brown Calculus. I love them so much. We've definitely collaborated, not just like, you know, with like playing shows together and sharing the same bill, but also like Vaughn and I have like recorded together. Dre has like helped me figure out my elect tribe, you know, definitely had him come in and do some collaborative work during the shutdown. And just needless to say, those two people are authentic in this community in Portland and have really deeply impacted like my creative pursuits and what it is that I do. And I think that's what it's about. And not only do I admire, you know, Vaughn and Dre and like what Brown Calculus is, but also anything that they make separately, together, you know. And I think, I mean, I haven't been here for the last couple of months, but I think it's really important to keep playing with your friends, you know, and like encouraging one another, you know. And like for me, like authenticity and being in your personal fidelity is so important. And I'm excited to play the show with them, and because of that. And like, and when you share space with community who are safe and who are also reflecting that same light back at you, I mean, we're creating our environment, you know, and then we get to share that. So it's not only, it's like a show, you know, yes, we're going to be playing here, but we're also get to like, you know, exchange energies. And so what better, it's like when you sit down and you have food, you know, you want to make sure whoever makes your food is like, you know, like with so much love, you know. I mean, you can't really control that, but it's like you can feel the energy. So it's like we provide, you know, our well-being, our like positivity, as we are with everything, not even everything, all the feelings, but in an authentic form. And then we share, and then we all get to benefit from being vulnerable and being real, you know. So yeah, so I'm excited, and we get to play in Seattle as well together, so we get to share this double bill. But I've collaborated with Papi Fimbres many times, not even just on this record, and not even just as, you know, a studio musician, homie studio musician. We've also played like a couple of shows. I mean, I've known Papi, I've been here since 2007. You know, we've like really seen and been part of, you know, this evolution of just shifts and changes, and like being Chicana myself, being Mexican American, is really hard to find people to like, you know, that you not only feel compatible with, but also can mirror similar experiences. In the Portland music, you know, community has, you know, been definitely lacking that representation. But like things are changing, things are shifting, and Papi has been, you know, a true collaborator and a true homie through the last couple of years. And as far as like the Northwest Portland music community, you know, I mean, it's hard to talk about that, to answer that question without really sharing the history, because since 2007 and like all the unchecked, all the problematic things that were happening, you know, during those times, you know, like that, which I'm just going to be brief, like there's been a lot of things that are shifting for the better and changing for the better. And so for the last couple of years, you know, being in this music community, though I both benefited from it, really have had, you know, met some really amazing people, got to collaborate with tons of musicians, but also has been very, very, and this is, I have to say it, but there's a lot of things that like processing my mental health around a certain, you know, group of people that doesn't really mirror my representation has been dangerous, you know. So there's a lot of that has been part of my realizations and my as I'm like this homecoming to myself, you know, like, so the music community has been both beautiful, amazing, but also there's been parts a lot of people don't understand that I've also had to divorce myself from certain narratives, certain ideals, certain parts of myself that wasn't really the most authentic parts of me. And the reason why they weren't authentic is because of a lot of code switching and a lot of like assimilating into something that I wasn't, just to survive, you know? So I have a different experience, and two things can exist at the same time. Like it being a very beautiful, you know, informative time for me for different reasons for other people. And also just like reflecting on this with the cognitive resonance, is it? Like really compartmentalizing the things that weren't so healthy for me, being a Mexican American, a queer artist, you know, in certain communities, you know, like and adjacent, like little, you know, artistic communities here. So I feel like Portland has come a long way, and I think that people need to stop trying so hard, you know, in this way. I guess we can unpack that, you know. But yeah, you know, it's a little bit of everything, you know. And I'm sure right now it's like this other totally different thing, you know. So that's real. Collapse, the music video, which is one of the first singles off of the new record. The video was filmed here in Portland, Oregon with Desert Island Studios. Joe Bowden and Jesse Bettis have been two people I've known for, I mean, since I got here. And even before, I've known Jesse Bettis, like in Ashland, Oregon. And so I trusted him and trusted his crew because he's genuine, and like it's so important whoever you're going to, you know, give your creative endeavor or your vision to someone that's going to be able to, you know, hold it right and like really, you know, doing the work to like try to see you as much as possible. And in this case, we had like such a short period of time to make a lot happen, and they definitely showed up for sure, and they continue to show up. And they made like it was like the seamless video. I mean, that people haven't seen yet, but you've only seen Collapse, but it's like 3 songs in one. And it's like from like, if you listen to the record, it's like the first song, then the second, it's all like seamless. And so they made a lot of things happen with nothing in a short period of time, and their whole crew, Maria Moreno, I mean, all of them they showed nothing but good vibes, good ideas, resources, you know, I got to work with, you know, some of my friends in the mix of that, like Tanya Argüelles. They put the wardrobe together and like made all these costumes for it. And I mean, that's so great, you know, so the experience was really, I don't even know if the right word, if fulfilling is the right word, but it was definitely, you know, whenever I come back to Portland now that I'm out here, it feels good to like be received in that way, you know, and also like I have some roots here, you know, like the roots are definitely, they are very apparent when I'm working with people that have been in Portland for like a long time, you know. So as being like the I didn't even know I was like referred as like a co-producer, or what was it?
They said executive producer.
Executive producer. Like, I think they said, you know, we talked a lot. We had a lot of meetings about it, and like definitely was a collaboration for sure. And, you know, I feel like we both respected like our visions, and we didn't know what was going to happen, you know? So, yeah. So stay tuned for the whole 3 song in one. Okay, what is my favorite song off of the new record and why? That's hard. For the longest time, it was Dibujos de mi alma. But I would, let me shift the word to favorite to the most relevant, the one that I feel like the most, I would say the first song off of the record, 8. That song was written in Mexico. So some of the songs were written in Mexico because towards the tail end, like Collapse, 8. I think that's it, just, I think. And 8, you know, I was like, you know, painting a picture of what my new environment was looking like, which, you know, in Mexico City, summers, it rains. It's like 73 degrees during the day, 75, and then around 5 o'clock, it just has these crazy monsoon rains, like 6 o'clock, like crazy, like lightning. So I was just like trying to paint a picture of, you know, what I was doing, where I was at, like the solitude that I was in, like as my companion, you know. And also in September, when I wrote that song, around that time, a friend passed away, like a community musician, someone in our community passed away, and I wasn't in Portland or in the United States to mourn and, you know, grieve with my community. This a really important loss, and like I also wrote a lot about what I was feeling with that. It just all felt so surreal and like so unfortunate, and like it still feels like super surreal, honestly. So it was like kind of like a note to him, and also it was a song that I wrote as a farewell. I mean, I finished my record under a lot of health issues. So I was going through a lot of health issues, you know, during that time, and it was really hard. That was part of the difficulty of finishing the record on top of all that, but like really intense, like, you know, stomach issues, and, you know, and then also like, you know, trying to be like a person in a new city, and like in my parents' country, and just, you know, taking it all on, and then having that news of that passing, and then also just feeling my own personal feelings about if I was going to continue to tour, continue to do, you know, what it is that I've been doing since I was really young, you know, because I've been growing up and realizing that I've been like, oh, what? I've been like making myself, I've been vulnerable this whole entire time, and people get to have tabs on like my growth and seeing me as a person through the documentation of albums and music and interviews like this. So I was like writing a farewell too of like, you know, this is the end, you know. And the Spanglish too, it just also happened very like, again, like it was just like an organic, it just happened, you know. So I would say that's like the most, the one that hits me the hardest because of all the information, but every single song has like this, you know, sentiment of like searching and longing and, you know, compartmentalizing certain grief and the ego that's not necessary anymore. Just, you know, deconstructing always. And the next record's gonna be like that too. So yeah, 8 is the most relevant. What am I looking forward from this tour? I'm always searching and looking forward to new opportunities to connect with my band members, to myself, to my community, like the audience, the people that have been supporting me for so long. That's what I look forward to. It's like really, you know, growing through this whole process And as far as future endeavors, I'm looking forward to, collaborating with people in Mexico and collaboration in general. And, though I did say that I am, the song 8 about like, oh, I'm not going to tour anymore. Is this the end? Like, just continuing the writing process to see where that takes me, I'm looking forward to healing certain parts of myself through this whole process, because it is tiring and it is taxing, but you learn so much, So, I'm looking forward to see what version of myself is going to support me mentally, physically, spiritually moving forward, so.